Welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with Anne and myself, Tanya. Our goal is to normalize, educate people around diversity and inclusion. We're not diversity experts, but we'd like to share stories with the guests that have something unique to share about diversity and inclusion. Today, we are joined by, as you see, mother, coach, Adinah Barlow. She's a relationship coach from the States and focuses on helping people heal their inner child and have a better relationship with themselves. Adinah is going to share her story, and we're so fortunate that she's willing to open up on such difficult conversations and topic around sexual, mental, and physical abuse, and how she's helped to actually forgive and create a new relationship with the person who abused her. Thank you so much, Adinah, for being part of Purple Coach Conversations.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you. I want to kind of share a little bit about how we started speaking and talking. And I remember how, when we spoke initially, you weren't sure whether you had a space to actually have a conversation around diversity and inclusion. And once we started going and diving deeper into your story, it was so obvious that you have come such a long way and you would bring so much value to our audience around topics that are so difficult. And the way that you showed up from the beginning, I wanted to applaud you on how humble of a person you are, and at the same time how strong you are, and an example that you're going to be to so many of our listeners. So thank you so much. Before we dive into
appreciate that
topics, Anne and I were sharing the next day how much that our conversation had impacted us, and we wanted to share that also with our listeners. If you don't mind telling us a bit about how we've started talking, and what your story is around all these difficult conversations.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to start out, I guess it's kind of hard to know where to start. But yeah, I guess just to start, I, as a child and a teenager, I experienced ongoing sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and as an older teen, fortunately, my mother got some help, and she left my father, put him in prison, and started to get us some help. And from there, it was a long journey of trying to normalize our life. And then for me later, I came to a place where I was just so I grieve so much that this kind of thing happens in families. And I've always wondered why does it happen? How is it possible that that the people who supposedly love their children or their partner, etc., that they can harm them so much? And I just didn't have any answers. And so at age 19, I was like, what's the point? Why am I even alive? And how can I even make a difference? Because I'm a one person and just a little drop in the bucket of, or the ocean. And I was really sad and really desperate. And this idea came to my mind, like, okay, what if I heal myself and stop the abuse in my family lineage? Because it wasn't just my dad, it was on both sides of the family, my mom and my dad, their parents and their grandparents. The abuse just went back many generations. I don't know how far. So I was like, okay, first of all, it must stop here. I refuse to have children and let it go on. This is ridiculous. So if I could heal within myself, maybe that would have a ripple effect onto other people, my friends, my family members, and if I have children, my children. And so at age 19, that was enough to fuel me to do whatever it takes to fulfill that hope, or just try it. So it's like, sure, there's bravery in there, but also desperation, like this can't go on. So yeah, so I got a lot of help, and it was just like, I guess actually the first support I got was a psychotherapist. And I guess just a little bit more backstory. So my dad went to prison for 7 years, and while he was in prison, he wrote me a letter that apologized profoundly for what he did, and acknowledged that his behavior had such a negative impact on me and my siblings. And so when he got out of prison, I decided I want to try and have a relationship with him again, but on my terms, my own terms. Up to that point, I had always been a daddy's girl. I loved him so much, and I did whatever he wanted me to do, which was awful. And it had very painful effects on me and my siblings. So having a relationship with him on my terms felt really important. And it felt like, okay, if I can achieve that, I could probably do anything. Because that's really hard, to be groomed, to be trained to do what somebody tells you to do, no matter how you feel about it. So even as a little girl, I was trained that I don't get to say no to anything. If I said no, I was punished, or I was shamed, or isolated. And so just the ability to say no to something, or to even listen to myself, to decide like this feels good or this doesn't feel good, that was trained out of me as a little girl. And the other thing that was trained out of me was talking about things. Sexual abuse cannot happen unless there is secrecy around it, because nowadays we say that's inappropriate as a society. And so if it's talked about, somebody is going to punish the perpetrator. And so as a little girl, I was trained into secrecy, with threats of my mother being taken away, my father and my siblings being taken away if I said anything. And I was probably maybe 5 when my dad told me these things. So I had so much to unlearn and to challenge those deep beliefs that like I would be a very bad person if I spoke up about it. And the fact that we can have this conversation now here on Purple Coach Conversations is, I guess, a testament, or a testament to how much I've been able to challenge and change those deep held beliefs. So it's totally possible. But yeah, when I decided to have a relationship with my dad on my terms, I knew that it was going to be difficult. I didn't know how difficult, but I figured it would make me so much stronger as a person. And I don't think at the time I realized this, but later I realized if I can change this with my dad, then my relationship with my intimate partner would be so much healthier, because it's like, well, I recognize that how my relationship with my mom affects my close female relationships in my life, and my relationship with my dad affects my close male relationships. There's no way it can't. And so if I was going to learn to trust men again, and to trust myself around men, to be able to stand up and say no to things that I don't want, and to ask for what I do want, and to bring an end to things that are inappropriate, the practice with my dad would be invaluable. And it has proven to be, up to this point, where every relationship I had got better and better and better, where I was able to speak up for myself. I was able to say no to things I didn't want. And it took time. There were many intimate partners where I did things they wanted that I didn't even consider if I wanted. And especially in a sexual fashion, where like maybe sex hurt and I didn't even speak up about it because I was so trained not to pay attention to my own body and my own comfort. But over time, as I learned and as I healed, I was able to speak up even in the face of like great fear. What happens if this person totally rejects me, if I ask them to stop, if I tell them something hurts? What happens if they don't love me anymore? That means I'm unlovable, I'm a bad person. Like all these stories go on in my head that keep me from speaking up for myself. And in the face of that, I had to speak up anyway, which was so scary and empowering over time. So I
I
feel
want
like I'm kind of all over the place.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm gonna interrupt you here just
Yeah.
to this moment to just from where we are sitting to just applaud you, your intelligence, your grace, and how lucky
Mm.
your son is to have you as
Aw.
mom. Wanting to break patterns, it's something that's one of the hardest things to do, and especially that particular pattern, facing it
Mm.
heads on, because we know how much it hurts when we
Mm.
face those small T traumas, but here we're talking about the
Mm.
big T traumas. We know how much a small T trauma already hurts. So imagine these ones. And with, like you said, the main relationships with your male relationships and female relationships, where there's so many unwanted emotions coming up, and
Mm.
having to process that, and that's sometimes something that and I mean, I have a lot of follow-up questions, a lot about how you manage to overcome all these unwanted emotions or transform them in some sort of ways.
Mm. Mm.
I really love also there's another part, and that's where I'm going to let you choose. It's how from a very young age you had intuitions about certain things not being okay,
Yeah.
and despite those intuitions being kind of buried, they remain there. And when
Mm-hmm.
time became the right time for you to do the work, they just popped out and they came out.
Mm.
And that's also something, from when you talk to us about the encounter with a different culture, and
Oh,
maybe
yeah. The
maybe we could start
Native
with
American
explaining
culture.
exactly. Maybe we could start with that,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
analogy with where you were brought up, and the rigidity of it
Mm.
versus that
Mm-hmm.
element of as a young child. How old were you? Five, was it? Or
Um, when we went to the Indian, well, let's see what it was. It was a powwow or a festival. I forget what they called it, but maybe I was 3 or 4. It was, I mean, it's hard to say how old, at around those ages, but I remember being very little and very young. Um, yeah, we spent, I think, only one night, maybe 2 nights, but we learned, we saw them dancing with their beautiful colors and their music, and saw how they worked with the land, in that, like, we made little huts out of willow trees, and we slept in those huts, and we cooked fish in the ground, like in some I don't know how they did it, but um, we did all these things that was so different and amazing. And yeah, it just like it sparked, many sparks went off in my brain, like, wow, there's something different here. And especially something more connected to nature, because I guess that's another thing that was the rigidity. My father was in a cult, a highly religious cult, and not only that, but then he took it and of course twisted it to his own agenda to justify all the things that he did or that he thought he had to do. And so there was just this rigid way of thinking that was very oppressive, and to have a spark of something different, something, like, I don't know, it was just wonderful. So that was one encounter. And then another encounter, well, firstly, in that religion, we were taught that Black people are less than us, that they're cursed because, the skin color is God's curse or whatever, which even as a child, I was like, hold on, but we just went to this aquarium and there's like thousands of colors of fish. And if that's true, and all the flowers in the fields, then surely God made those. And also, wait a minute, didn't God make all of his children in his image? Like, it didn't make any damn sense to me, even as a little, like, I think I was probably 10 or 12 when those thoughts came. And so it was just ridiculous. But at age 15, after my dad went to prison, my mom remarried, and that family had an adopted daughter from Peru, my age. And so they asked me to come out and live in the Bahamas with them for 6 months. And we lived on this little island that was predominantly Black people. And I loved it. It was like the people were so beautiful and different and kind, of course, and just like it was amazing. so so those events really, stuck in my mind in terms of like the rigid oppressive ideas that my dad forced down my brain couldn't be true. There's no way that could be true. And that was hope. That gave me hope.
I just want to say it's fascinating listening to your story and everything that you've been through, but looking at you now, being able to be such a force and such a positive person and being able to shift all of that, because I mean, child abuse is one of the worst crimes, if not
Yes.
the worst crime that can happen to someone, and that can be inflicted on another human being. But your healing seems to have taken some kind of magical form. And I'm just wondering, for everyone listening out there, well, I guess there's two questions. Is, first of all, what made you actually want to have a relationship with your father despite everything that he'd put you through? Because I'm imagining there are some people listening to this and asking, why would you even want to have a relationship with someone like that?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing with us why that relationship was important to continue even after you came out of prison?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is, I still loved him. Like deep down, I still loved him, and there were so many things he did that was wonderful. Like he taught me how to whistle, and we'd skip down the road together, hand in hand, and like skip and whistle and skip and whistle. And he'd pick me up and swing me around and give me hugs, and he read to us at night, and he sang and taught us percussion and taught us how to harmonize, and we as kids loved to sing together and harmonizing. He encouraged that. He would take us on adventures, and we'd go drive places and see cool things. um, and of course, like he always provided for us a house and clothes and food, and so like there's no way that a person can be only one thing. We're too complex for that. And And for me to think this is a bad person, that's the same kind of rigidity that got me here in the first place. That, like, that's how somebody can abuse another person, is by forgetting their humanity. Just like Brene Brown talks about in her book, Atlas of the Heart, where we cannot harm another person when we're seeing our shared humanity. It's impossible. But when we forget that and we put a label on them and we say that is a bad person, that is a perpetrator, that is a whatnot, or even ourselves, I am a bad person, I am unlovable, and I'm labeling myself, then I forget my humanity and I close myself off from connection. So yeah, I think that the biggest part was that I still loved him. And then the other thing was that I just recognized, for some reason, that I could use that relationship to heal, to help heal. And it was exciting to think, like, wow, I could stand up to this, what I previously felt was a monster. I could like go look under that bed, like, there's a monster under the bed. Okay, well, let's go look. What does it look like? Is it really there?
Yeah.
But, oh, you know what? This is another really, really important thing. He acknowledged what he did, and he asked for, he said he wanted to make it right in any way he could. If he hadn't done that, there's no way. And I know for our listeners, there's so many people who the person who harmed you is in total denial. They refuse to acknowledge it. They might even blame you for the harm that they put on you, which is fucking ridiculous. And so, of course, like, why would you want to have a relationship with them? And perhaps it would be really unhealthy for you too. So I'm not saying that having a relationship with the person who harmed you is the best thing for you. Like, it might not be. For me, it was. And part of it is that my father recognized, acknowledged what he did, and was willing to change with me. And he had to, like, I had to train him how I wanted him to treat me. And if he didn't want to be a part of that, if he didn't want to have a relationship and meet me there, I couldn't have done it myself. Like, a relationship is a two-way street. But he really wanted that relationship, because I was like the only one of his daughters who wanted that. Everybody else was like, fuck you, I'm out. And they had the right to. Mm-hmm. And they still, the ones who don't want to talk to him now, they have that right. And I honor them for it. Like, that is totally their choice. Nothing wrong or right about it.
It sounds as well like there's a lot of forgiveness that went into helping you heal from the trauma and from what you experienced. Is there anything else, do you think, because it's such a heavy thing to heal from? If you ever completely fully heal, I don't think there are a lot of people who do, right? Yeah, it's such a work in progress, I think, that happens for the rest of your life. What other techniques, or are there any particular techniques or therapies that you think also helped you with your healing process?
Yeah, thanks for asking that,
today.
Yes, thanks, especially because that's such an important part. Like, there's absolutely no way I could have done it myself. And from the age of 19, I was fortunate enough that I could, but also I was willing to put all of my available resources into healing. So basically anything beyond my basic needs and, a little bit of pleasure, go party here or there. All of my resources went to therapy, like physical, so therapy for my mind, to help me understand what happened and why, and what was my, where's my place in this now, and what can I do about it, to help me understand that it wasn't my fault in any way, shape, or form, that I didn't ask for that. And then it was also a lot of body therapy. I went into massage as a way to help others heal, but really it healed me. Like having safe touch was such a critical piece of my healing. Safe therapeutic touch, to be able to receive that and to be able to give that was so important. And then a lot of spiritual healing as well that came in many different forms, from sweat lodges and workshops and medicine ceremonies. Like I did a couple of ayahuasca ceremonies that really helped. Even honestly, like, I don't know about in the UK, but here in Portland, some of these therapies are much more accepted and understood for their healing powers. But even MDMA at a certain point was very valuable to help me relax and be able to trust my sweetheart, my partner, my trusted partner. I mean, this was like way at the tail end of my healing process. I don't think I would have done it right away. Maybe, but with a lot of guidance. But yeah, so there was those even chemical help. And somatic work. Somatic was super important. It's that combination of physical sensation with emotion and the body, because a lot of trauma is stored pre-verbal. It's in the nervous system, and it can't be accessed through the brain through just thinking linearly and logically about it. It's felt, and a lot of those are deeply buried. And so one of my first somatic sessions, I had terror come up, and it expressed itself in, like, I was screaming in terror. And it wasn't because of what the therapist was doing. And I even had my partner there with me, because he warned us that it might bring up some pretty scary stuff. But it was the terror that I had felt as a child that was stored in my nervous system that needed to come up. And so, healing from that big a trauma, it can't be just one approach, and it doesn't happen quickly either. It kind of builds on itself, and but every little bit helps. Does that kind of answer your question, Anna?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Makes a lot of sense. Excuse me. And I think those listening in as well, you've provided quite a few different therapies and things that they can try with their own healing journey, which I think is really important, because it's such a heavy topic, but it's the whole point that we've created this platform with Tanya, is to share such stories, but also how can people heal from them? What can we learn from them? How can we grow into better human beings?
Well, and can I put a tiny twist that I think is really important, is that I truly believe that we are amazing, wonderful human beings naturally, that naturally we want to cooperate, we want to live in harmony, and that systemic, consistent trauma is the things that take us away from that. So what we're doing, we're not becoming better. We're getting rid of the shit that's in the way of being our natural, wonderful, harmonious, cooperative beings. I think it's a myth that we are naturally competitive and harmful and all this stuff. I think it's not true. I think it's the systems that we find ourselves in that make us this way, and the power over structures that our societies, many of our societies, are built on, the extractive cultures. There's no way that our human bodies are not affected by the way we extract from Mother Earth. Like, we're connected, and all of that affects how we are. So, like, we don't have to become better people. We have to get rid of the systems and the ideas that keep us from being our natural selves. That's how I feel.
Yes, Adinah, thank you so much for sharing those different techniques. And we know that, with the increased coverage of Gabor Mate work, that he's been doing with Native communities in Canada. So he's a physicist who, has been uncovering trauma and addiction and explaining, what you shared before, which was the key piece of everything, which was, the person who abused you, your father, acknowledged what he did. He acknowledged what he did. So it's not about forgiveness. And he says that very often, the perpetuated trauma through generation is actually because it's not just forgiveness, it's acknowledgement. It has to be and that's the idea of unconditional love that we sometimes misunderstand it with our children. It's not about loving unconditionally, but it's about accepting unconditionally, whatever your child's bringing up the surface, because that child will trigger your traumas that you've inherited from your past and your own traumas. So the work that you're doing is even deeper, that you're not just working on your own traumas from what has happened with your father at home, but also whatever he has inherited himself or your mother. So it's this is where the work is even deeper. And there is, and I believe, like Gabor Mate will tell you, and that's where I think, for our listeners, I guess they have to be very careful, if they've gone through abuse themselves, is choosing the right person, because there's a lot of people out there that will tell you that they can help with trauma, but they might actually make you relieve the trauma rather than release it. And so it's not just about, it has to be very much about a release of the trauma, release of the emotion. Like you've said, those are all the roots that are inside of us. The problem is very often the focus is just on the behavior and the thinking, and not what's happening deep down inside of us. And the therapies sometimes are not good enough, or the coaching is sometimes not good enough for it. So anyone listening, what I'd like to invite them to do is, if you're willing for it, to send you a message and say, look, I found this person. Do you think that person seems to be, in line with what you were working around, etc. Just so, because we have to be careful also with whom we embark on this journey, is what I'm trying to give a disclaimer.
Well, yes. May I add to that?
Yeah. Tell me. Yeah.
One of the really important pieces for me was learning to trust myself. And part of learning to trust myself is to take a risk and to try something and see the results. And some of those results are painful because I didn't make the best choice. So if I export that decision making and that risk taking to another person, if the listeners were to message me and say, hey, what do you think of this person? Maybe that's valuable, but maybe it's disempowering in that then you're putting that opportunity for learning what works for you and what doesn't on somebody else. And what I would say is, if you're willing to listen to yourself and say, do I feel comfortable in this? Or if it's not comfortable, do I feel like it's valuable? And then follow up with that. Like, what happened when I went to this session with this person? What were the results? Did I feel better because of that? Or do I feel more trapped? Do I feel more oppressed? Do I feel more shame than I did before? Do I feel more trauma? And from that, then be strong enough to say no, thank you to any other sessions, or to say yes, please. And so that internal compass, it's like when you align, when you regain the capacity to align your internal compass and make decisions from there, that is key to everything else in your life, being able to trust yourself and learning what works for you, experimenting.
I think it's such a good point you make there as well, that it has to feel right for you, and trusting your internal compass to make that decision. Because I think a lot of the times we overanalyze a lot of things logically, but, you know, kind of using our own intuition as well to guide us on such decisions. I want to thank you so much for everything. I want to thank you so much for your openness, how candid you've been. I know it's an extremely difficult topic. I think Tanya mentioned as well in the beginning, after our conversation last time, we were both left with feeling quite, I don't want to say disturbed, but it was such a heavy conversation with you know, we could feel the impact of the conversation after the conversation. I want to thank you once again for being part of the show, for sharing your story. Before we let you go, what's the best way to get in touch with you? If you want to share your details with the audience, and we'll include that on the show notes as well.
You can find me at adinahbarlow.com. My Facebook is Adinah Barlow. I post things there publicly, a lot about my journey, or just like what's happening now, especially with my own relationship with being a mother. And then I'm also working on a coaching project that is about reconnecting with your inner child, aka nervous system, right? So like I like to imagine our inner child. And a lot of people have like harsh judgment, especially those who experience trauma. We internalize that and then turn it in on ourselves. And then, of course, that affects how we treat other people. And so what I found is if we can soften and sweeten that inner dialogue and remember that we are, like, remember our inner child, our inner sweet, innocent child, and treat ourselves with that kind of compassion and patience and understanding, then all of our other relationships are easier. So that's Project Inner Child. It's on my website at adinahbarlow.com. So you can read about that and participate if you'd like.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Brilliant. Be sure to check it out, everyone who's listening, and follow her as well on her social media. Thank you once again to everyone listening in and everyone who's been following Purple Coach Conversations. We appreciate you all as well. Please feel free to share this series with anyone you think would gain value from listening to this conversation. Until next month, thank you for now.
And thank you too so much for creating Purple Coach Conversation. It's so valuable what you're doing. I so appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to be here and share my story.
Oh, thank you so much, Adinah.
You're welcome.